My name is Steve Hanson. I'm president and CEO of ACME Lithium. We are an explorer and developer of North American lithium projects in Nevada, United States, and also in Manitoba and Saskatchewan, Canada.
Steve, thank you very much for the introduction. Good to be speaking to you again. You're in a hotel room. You're obviously on the road show. I can see that you've put out the news release saying that you started drilling in the Shatford project in South Manitoba. So you're clearly wanting to talk about that. So why don't you let's get straight into it. Tell us about this drill program and where you've got to as a company.
Merlin, great to see you again, and happy to provide you an update on ACME Lithium. Yes, I'm in Toronto on a roadshow this week, and excited to be here. This is actually my first roadshow to Toronto in some time. I've done a few Zoom calls, obviously with COVID, and now finally getting on the road in the new year. It's exciting to be here. Our meetings have been excellent, and the company's been well received. And really, the timing is important because of what's going on here in the early days of 2023. It's really an exciting stage for ACME Lithium. A lot of the work this past summer and fall have led up to this moment. As you mentioned, in particular, we have started drilling at our pegmatite project in Manitoba. Drilling commenced last week, and so excited to get results out over the next few months at that drill program. And then in parallel, a drill rig is on site at our lithium brine project in Nevada. There's been some bad weather come in over the new year, and we were a little late setting it up than we thought, but we should be set up this weekend and good to go. I'm hoping to announce commencement of drilling at our brine project at Silver Peak in Nevada sometime next week. This is a phase 2 program, an expanded program from our discovery last summer. So 2 parallel drill programs going on in North America, a really exciting time for the company, and look forward to continuing to provide updates to our shareholders and investors.
So the bad weather you're referring to, that's presumably the Arctic plume or the weather bomb you had.
Well, California had an atmospheric river, they call it, that came through there in the first few days of the new year, and that dropped a fair bit of rain and bad weather in that southwestern region in Nevada. So we had an extra little time to set up the rig, and again, it's on site, and hopefully have it set up this weekend. And I'm hoping to be able to announce that we've commenced drilling sometime next week. And
so that's at Clayton Valley. And you're going to be doing phase 2 drilling, pump tests, presumably. Because in the phase 1, you identified the lithium brine. You identified the presence of the mineral. Now, what you're doing is understanding the flow rates that you can get from a pump test. Am I correct?
That's correct, Merlin. Our project is contiguous to the northwest of Albemarle's Silver Peak project. This is a brine project that's been in production since 1966. Albemarle is a New York Stock Exchange company, $30 billion plus company, one of the largest providers and producers of lithium in the world. And in fact, it's the only place where lithium is produced in the United States. It's hard to believe that there's only one place that currently produces lithium. We are their northwest neighbor. We made a discovery last summer in the same lithology and ancient lake bed that's been producing for a long time. We drilled to 1,400 feet last summer. Had brine intensifying all the way down to the bottom of the hole, with the highest grade at the bottom of the hole at 1,400 feet. We then worked all fall through procurement and permitting and planning for this phase 2 program. This is one of the largest brine programs in the United States to be drilled in this past year. As part of this program, we will be drilling a twin hole, a rotary hole. This is a wider hole, which is a test well. From that test well, we're able to do a pump test to understand how the aquifer flows. And then as part of this program, we're drilling up to 3 exploration holes that hopefully will allow us to get to a resource calculation and see how big that reservoir is. So we're very excited. We're just northwest of existing production at Albemarle's Silver Peak project, and looking forward to starting this program hopefully sometime next week.
Forgive my ignorance, but if you've got an aquifer, so that the fluid comes into the brine, so it's continually putting into solution the lithium into brine. Is that correct, or is it carrying in lithium with it? I mean, is it? where does the lithium come out? Is it from the existing brine, from the existing point, or is it which is put into solution by new water, or is the lithium brought in with the fluid?
Well, lithium is the lightest element actually in the world, and there's movement in it as erosion has taken place over many, many years, of course. And in the aquifer, where there's salt water, it's much akin to oil and gas. There's an underwater aquifers that move based on sands and gravels and porosity that are in this ancient lake bed.
It's basically the lithium is in the brine. It's just that you're looking at the volume of the brine which is containing the lithium.
So the key to get to an economic resource is pump volumes. How can this aquifer perform in pumping brine out of the aquifer? So pressure is very important. And then grade is obviously important. And then size of the aquifer is important. And that allows us to get to a resource calculation.
And the pump test will show you all of the porosity and the permeability characteristics so you can get the flow rates.
So in this water well, this test well that we're drilling, we're able to actually potentially produce from multiple intervals. There are some varying productive layers historically that are known to produce. So there's testing we can do for flow rates and production all the way down the hole. So we're going to be drilling to 2,000 feet this time as opposed to 1,400 feet. Again, we had the highest recorded lithium values at the bottom of the hole. So these will be deeper holes. And again, we're hoping to have multiple horizons where we can produce from.
And is the well is it more like an oil and gas well, which you can kind of shutter off, or is it still more akin to a conventional mineral drilling rig?
No, this is more akin to oil and gas. I mean, brine drilling, you're drilling water wells, and but it is more akin to oil and gas. You're dealing with a reservoir. You're dealing with porosity and permeability and flow rates, and again, multiple intervals you can produce from. So much more akin to oil and gas than it is to hard rock drilling.
Now, I always think that oil and gas is a more expensive business. So and also it can also take a longer time. So what's your budget and your timeline for this phase 2 drill test?
Well, in fact, it's the opposite. What's interesting about drilling water wells, in essence, and these are saltwater wells that have lithium in them, is that I don't have to drill it like a pincushion. With hard rock drilling, to get to a resource, you may have to drill 50, 60, 70, 100, 150 holes to ultimately define a resource. That's quite different in here when you're dealing with a reservoir. I can drill a handful of holes and triangulate them and forecast what the reservoir looks like, and then with pump tests be able to get to a resource. So again, we expect in this phase 2 program for between $2.5 and $3 million that we potentially can get to a resource on a phase 2 drill program. So in hard rock mining, it's quite different. So there are some, although each of our holes would be more expensive because there's other work being done, water handling. There's piezometers that we're putting down the hole. There's downhole geophysics. So although the individual holes may be more expensive than, let's say, core drilling, I can get to a resource faster with fewer holes.
And the presumably the well you're testing and the 3 or 4 exploration wells you're drilling around are going to give you an indication of the kind of aquifer size within a predictable range.
Absolutely.
Is that the plan? So
that's the plan.
Okay, great. And so you mentioned $2.5 to $3 million. When will you kind of come back to the market, do you think, and say, this is what we've got? Are we talking 3 months or 6 months or 9 months?
So assuming that we start next week, again, I'm crossing my fingers here that everything goes well with weather and setup and there aren't any hiccups, but there may be some things out of my control. But assuming that we get set up next week, this will be about a 120-day program. That's our estimated time. Could take a little longer. Obviously, we will be sending results to the lab, or sending information to the lab, including core, also brine. So that will be going to the lab. We'll be analyzing them in rolling batches as we send that information to an independent lab. And so excited to get results out, and hopefully we have success with the drill bit.
Okay, so that's, to me, sounds like more or less about 6 months by the time you're ready to come to the market. So that's something we can look forward to in the middle of the year. Good. Now, going on to the news release you put out this week was actually about drilling hard rock in South Manitoba. You've mentioned a 5,000 meter program. You talk about the kind of the Shatford East area being on this kind of 7 kilometer kind of slightly curved trend. But I kind of wanted a bit more information. I'm hungry for information on, what is it you're drilling? How do you know that it's any good? What constitutes success, and what kind of structure are you looking at?
Well, our Shatford Lake project is about 1.5 kilometers south of the Tanko mine. The Tanko mine is owned by a very large Chinese company called Sino Mine. Those are LCT pegmatites that they're producing from lithium, cesium, and tantalum. That mine has been in production off and on since 1969, and is the only place where lithium is currently being produced in Canada. So, interesting enough, we neighbor the only production in the US, and here we are, we neighbor the only production in Canada. Again, we are the largest landholder contiguous to Tanko south of that mine. Our border is about 1.5 kilometers south. And in fact, the area where we are drilling is a band of structure that is just south of directly south of the Tanko mine. We did extensive summer work, mapping, structural work, geophysics, some geochemistry. There were known pegmatites on surface, and then as part of that summer exploration program, we uncovered some new pegmatites. We spent all fall analyzing the data. We went through the permitting process with the Manitoba government. I signed an agreement with Saugeen First Nation, which is a very important agreement. Now that we collaborate with Saugeen First Nation, we employ a number of their group as well. And excited to announce that we've commenced drilling, a winter drilling program up to 5,000 meters at Shatford Lake. We've identified priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3 drill holes. We've permitted significantly more than the 5,000 meters that we've announced. Again, this is a phase 1 program. If we have success with the drill bit over this program, I will have the optionality to actually continue to drill for a longer period of time. So this is a maiden program. We have a lot of the indicators that could suggest that we have success, but at the end of the day, we don't know. We've got to drill, and hopefully Mother Earth will be good to us.
And are you planning, I don't know, 50, 100 meter holes, or 25, 200 meter holes, or something in between?
Yeah, these are up to 250 meters. I expect that it really depends on the site location and where they're located. There's some, although it's low lying, there are some slight elevations here and there. I expect that we'll drill between 15 and 20 holes as part of this initial program, which could be expanded. We have that optionality, and we are funded to be able to drill for a longer period, and we have that flexibility with our drilling contractor as well. So we'll look for results here over the next probably 75 to 120 days. We'll have results from the lab, and looking forward to hopefully having some success with the drill bit.
And you mentioned 15 to 20 holes. You've mentioned a bunch of first priority, second priority, third priority targets. If you do 2 holes in a target, you're looking at kind of 7 to 10. If you do 3 holes, you're looking at kind of 3 to 4. 4 or 5. targets? Is it too early to say how many you plan to target, or are you just going to see how you go?
There are sites that we are drilling from, drill pads, so to speak, that we will drill 2 to 3 holes from each site, and then move in along this structure. So there are multiple sites that we'll drill from 2 to 3 holes per site. We have a number of sites that are permitted, and we have the optionality, depending upon how things go and what we're seeing, and flexibility as to how we might want to alter or change the program.
Great. And you mentioned budget. You said you funded for 5,000 meters and possibly more. What are you estimating that 5,000 meters is going to cost you?
This is winter drilling, which actually has some benefits. There's a fair bit of water in that southeastern region, some boggy areas and some low-lying water, and it means that we actually can drill in open area in some cases without having to cut down trees for pads and so forth. So there's some advantages to winter drilling. And what's most interesting is the Tanko pegmatite that's been in production off and on since '69 and is currently in production was not an exposed pegmatite. It was actually accidentally found, and it was actually under shallow water, interesting enough. So, we think that this winter drilling program has the ability for us to drill not on just sort of flat areas of outcrop, but actually areas that are not accessible during the summer. So there's some interesting targets that we have. We'll spend in the neighborhood of up to $2 million with all the services and everything set up. The first drilling program is always going to be a little more expensive. We're learning as we go here. But again, we have the optionality of continuing this program if we have success with the drill bit on this phase 1. We're very excited. I believe this region is one of the most prospective regions for pegmatites in Canada. I think there's going to be multiple discoveries made throughout this region. Hopefully ACME is one of those companies. There's a lot of attention being paid to this area. We're seeing a lot of Australians come into Manitoba who are looking to joint venture, or even in some cases now we're seeing Australian companies stake ground in the area. The fact that it's the only production in Canada, I think, bodes well for the future for investment. And again, we're one of the largest landowners, and we're contiguous to the south of the Tanko mine. So very exciting times. Looking forward to getting results out, and it's a really interesting time to be an investor in ACME Lithium.
Okay, let's talk about the investment side of things, because the market, the share price has actually come off quite a lot in the last 6 months. And when I compare the share price of ACME relative to a few other names in the space, it's underperformed. And is that because, I don't know, is the market, the market's not liking something? Is it because they feel that you're spread too thin? I see you've just picked up another project up in the north of Saskatchewan, Bailey Lake. How do you answer the kind of that criticism that you've got too many projects and too much on?
Well, I think a number of juniors have come off over the course of this period. Obviously, we traded higher through the spring period, and then when we saw the Ukraine war start, inflation, volatility in the market, we were certainly not. We were exposed to some of that volatility. I think since the summer, although we've been very, very busy behind the scenes, we haven't had a lot of material news out. A lot of the work through the fall was some geophysics, some sampling, some analysis, some behind the scenes computer work, permitting, procurement, everything leading up to this moment. So, we didn't have necessarily the significant material news that maybe investors are looking for. I think that as a fairly new company, we've only been public for a year and a half. There may have been some earlier shareholders that had decided to maybe profit take or move on to other investments. I think Tesla stock down. There's also other outside factors that maybe people have moved on. Tax loss selling at the end of the year, a number of things. But, we believe actually that this time is the most interesting time to be an investor. I know with 2 programs where we're drilling, We've got cash in the bank. Nothing has changed corporately. We're as good as we've ever been, and if anything, I think it creates an opportunity for investors to participate. In fact, we're up so far this year. In calendar year, we're showing green on the screen, and we're moving in the right direction here in 2023. So it's a good start. And yes, we've added another project in Saskatchewan. We now are the largest landholder of prospective pegmatites in northern Saskatchewan, and we have interesting spodumene-bearing pegmatites on surface up to 4,000 ppm, and also an outcrop as well. So really interesting project. It was a very low-cost entry for us to pick up this project. We were very fortunate. We have the ability, and with our team, in that I'm very aggressive. We move quickly on things, and what I seek here now is like-minded partners that can advance some of these projects in concert. So, Fish Lake in Nevada, we have a clay project that is next to the world-class Ioneer Rhyolite Ridge project, which the U.S. government just announced $700 million U.S. in investment. We have a neighboring project to the west with decent grade lithium on surface, and now geophysics this fall that suggests we've got some clay targets. We're looking for a partner to actively help develop that project. Certainly in Saskatchewan, we'll have boots in the ground this June, and we're looking for a partner to actively develop what is a very, very large project that is in earlier exploration. So, we have some world-class projects here. I think we've got the best portfolio in North America for a lithium company, and we'll continue to seek strategic investors, like-minded partners, and then we have capital to advance these projects as well to create value for shareholders.
Thank you. That's a comprehensive answer. What was I going to ask? I can't remember. But let's go to the meetings. What's the feedback you're getting at the moment? Oh, sorry. I know what I was going to mention was contrarian investment, because we were talking about in a falling market, what investors should be doing. In theory, it's very hard to have the discipline to do it, but is to look at a falling area, or an area where there's been value destruction, and see whether the corporate situation or the company situation in any particular case has actually improved over time. And so I think what you're actually saying, or no, I mean, you said it very well, but I'm just seeing it from a different way, is that the share price may not have changed very much in 6 months, but the company's actually stronger and closer to kind of key catalysts.
Well, I think you're correct. I think we're as strong as we've ever been with what key catalysts are coming up here in 2023. All the work and heavy lifting that we've done over the last 6 months has led to this moment. I mean, this is pretty exciting. This is where you want to be an investor. We're drilling it to investors. This is the potential to really move the needle for the company. And we lost momentum through a period of volatility and a period of uncertainty, and we understand that happens in the junior markets. The good news is we were well financed, and I raised capital at the appropriate time through institutional investors. We're backed by Waratah Capital and their Electrification and Decarbonization Fund. They're one of the top funds. They're experts in battery metals. They're our largest shareholder now, and they've invested in us twice. We're backed by Lithium Royalty Corporation, another fund that only invests in lithium, and they invest in just over 20 projects globally. We are one of them. And so we have very, very good investors that have backed us for the long term, and are looking for us to develop these projects over time. So we're well financed. We raise capital in a good market. They're long-term investors, and we're hoping that shareholders are patient and give us time to advance these projects. But again, we've got near-term catalysts, which, this is an exciting time for the company and could really advance us in many ways.
And what are the institutional investors you're seeing in Toronto saying? Are they saying, "Oh, you're too small, wait until you're bigger and then we'll invest"? Or are they saying, "Why don't you raise some money at these levels and we'll put some in"? What's the feedback from them?
Well, it's a fairly new company. I mean, I've done a lot of work in the last year and a half. Actually, it's hard to believe what we've accomplished in a very short period of time. And although I've done quite a number of Zoom meetings and have met with institutional investors, this is my first roadshow to Toronto, meeting with investment banks, with analysts, with investors, and they're hearing about ACME for the first time in many cases. And what is across the board, what I'm hearing is they haven't seen a portfolio like this that's come across their table, where we have a project next to the only production in the US, we have a project next to the only production in Canada, and now we have a third project that's next to Ioneer, which has signed offtakes with Ford, Panasonic, Toyota, and now the US government is about to put in up to 700 million. It will be the next project to go into production in the United States next to Thacker Pass. So we have excellent location and closeology. We have geological structures and regions, and lithium, and now anomalous lithium in all of those projects. So we just need to advance them. And again, an exciting time to be an investor. The feedback has been excellent. And I've got another day about to start here in Toronto here shortly of presentations, and looking forward to telling our story and hopefully finding some interest here in Toronto.
Well, I better let you get on with your day then. But thank you very much for taking the time. I look forward to catching up, perhaps once the phase 1 drilling is through at Shatford Lake, or indeed in Clayton Valley. Thank you very much for your time. It's been a really interesting update.
Great, Merlin. Great to see you again, and thanks for your time as well.